Hello and welcome to day 4 of working on my minimal timer project. So today I really want to figure out how I'm going to get the colors to work in my app. So in my last attempt I had some trouble figuring out how to get gradients to work because I figured it would look a lot nicer to have gradient colors, in the app. It feels a lot more modern and a lot more sleek than having just flat colors, but it was more tricky than I would expect because of this one little problem, and that's that when you add a gradient to the screen in Swift, it adds it as a layer. And that seems like a fine thing, except that layers don't automatically resize themselves when a view resizes. So what that means is that when you're holding your phone up like this, or hang on, this is confusing. When you're holding your phone up like this, wow, this takes a lot of coordination. You have no idea. I'm trying to look at myself in the camera there, and it's reversed. So it's not like a mirror, it's the opposite. Anyway, so you're holding your phone up. I'll use one hand. And when you turn it landscape, all of a sudden, the gradient is now still vertical, so it takes up half the screen, and there's a big blank space. I'm sure someone else has probably had this problem. Let's actually Google it. Let's see. Gradient, layer, landscape, Swift. There we go. Oh yeah, there you go. Gradient layer is not working, landscape. Yeah, see, this is the exact problem. You've got your phone vertical, it's great. As soon as it turns horizontal, the gradient stays vertical and doesn't change. So the answer here, yeah, and this is what I expected. It says to just set the gradient layer, the frame of it, to just be whatever the bounds are. But the problem with that is when you turn the device, it rotates and then it it actually sets the thing and then rotates, and you end up with a sudden flash of the background or a quick rotation of the gradient, and it looks kind of weird. It looks kind of jumpy. So I'm going to have to... Yeah, and yeah, they said that they didn't try it. You could try it with Vue did layout sub-views as well. But yeah, you kind of want the gradient to rotate like the rest of the stuff does whenever you rotate something whenever you change the screen from portrait to landscape on iOS. It rotates smoothly, the bits rearrange themselves and it looks nice. Whereas if something just suddenly disappears from one spot and reappears in another spot, it's not smooth. So that's what I'm going to try and figure out a way to do that this time. And I'm thinking it might involve animations where as soon as the view is about to start rotating, it fades the gradient just to a single color, rotates, and then fades the gradient back in the same time as it's, doing its stuff, and it will look hopefully a lot more smooth. But we'll see if that actually ends up working. Let's go into... Well, I'm actually going to just... should I create a new project for this? No, I'll do it inside this one. And we're going to create just a new view, and I'll set this new view to be so view controller, just a plain view controller, and I'll set that to be the input, the start of the storyboard. So that means that wherever this arrow is, that's where the application will start. So when you launch the application, it will start on whatever view the arrow's on. The storyboard entry point, that's what it's called. So yeah, so this is going to be the entry point now, and we'll just forget about that one while we're working on this. I'm going to make this a little bigger. I'm just going to make it full screen. There we go. Nice. So yeah, this now needs... I'll bring up the assistant editor here. And... Oh, right. Okay, so we're going to need to give it a custom class because that's the view controller there. Or we could, yeah, just set this to be view controller. There we go. So when a view controller object is created, which is should automatically show up, but apparently it's not going to refresh yet. Oh, there it is. Cool. View controller.swift. So super.view did load. Now we actually want to create a new override here. View will appear. What am I doing? Override func view will appear. And yeah, I think that is what we want. And this is going to add a gradient layer to the thing. So to create a gradient layer, it's let's see, gradient equals, oh geez, it's hard to code on camera, you know. Gradient, let gradient equals CA gradient layer. Yep, CA gradient layer. And does that have any properties? No. Cool. Okay, so then gradient dot colors, right? Okay, we can set the colors. We're just going to go a very simple white to black equals, what type of colors were they? Sorry, hang on. Colors, any. Okay, right. How can it be any? I don't know. We'll go with UI color dot white and UI color dot black. There we go. Nice white at the top, black at the bottom. I think that's how it'll work. I don't know if there's any other properties we need to set, but anyway, now we've got to add it to the views layer. So view.add, view.layer. So the view is, I keep pointing at the screen. The view is this. Excuse me, sorry, my throat's not sounding so good today. Yeah, the view is this white area here, and you can see there it is. It's called view, which is nice. I could name that anything I want, but by default it's called view, and I think that's a pretty good name. So view.layer, this is the layer of it, and I'm going to add a sublayer, and that sublayer is going to be this gradient that I just created, and I'm actually going to rename this gradient layer just to get it, make sure it's nice and clear what it actually is. It's a gradient layer, not just any old gradient. And then, like, I think that should do it. I don't know what that is. That's about the UI tests, which is something I haven't actually looked into enough to understand right now. I don't know why they show up as errors, but hopefully it will still run. Oh, it's going to run on my phone in real life, so maybe I'll put it on a simulator so that you guys can see it as well. Yeah, let's cancel that. And what are we looking for? I guess we'll go to iPhone 10. Now I'm just thinking we might have to set the bounds of this layer, because at the moment I think it's just 0 by 0, so it's small. I don't know. We'll see if it shows up anyway. And if it shows up, then that's great. And if it doesn't, then we'll tweak that. Simulator's launching. I might just skip through this. Okay, I think the simulator's fully launched now. Yeah, the thing's running. So this is our app. It's just a white screen. So that's a little boring. So that means that yes, we do need to actually set the gradient layer to have bounds equals view.bounds. There we go. That might fix it, because yeah, if it's 0 by 0, it doesn't look very impressive, as you might guess. Now that's still not working. I'm not actually sure what I'm doing, to be honest. Let's Google. Google is your best friend when you're working with programming. Let's see. Add gradient layer Swift. There we go. Oh, that's iOS 7, but it should be similar. Select color, yeah. So it's a gradient layer, colors, locations, 0. Maybe I have to set the locations, right. I'll do that before the bounds. I feel like that makes more sense. gradient layer dot locations. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to go 0.0 and then 1.0, which I think will be at the very top and the very bottom. And that's, I don't know if you've ever done, oh, I need to put an equal sign in there. If you've ever messed around with gradients in Word or Pages or anything, and when you set the colors, you have the little dragging handles that you can move around, and if you put them right at the ends, then obviously that's where the colors will be at their strongest. You can also move them around, and I think that's what these numbers here are about. It's, you know, the position from 0% all the way through to 100%. Now, I think is that a full stop there that I've put in by accident? That might fix it. Okay. Cool, so let's see if that's enough now. You can never run your code too many times. So yeah, in here they don't even have, oh yeah, view background layer dot frame. Yeah, so you do need to set the frame. Okay, still not working. You know, I have done this before. It's just difficult to think on camera and also difficult to remember random bits of programming syntax for creating things like gradients. So I'm going to cut right now and do a little time lapse of my process to figure out what's going on. And I'm also going to fix the lighting because I look very pale. Let's turn that around. Okay, cool. I'll be back in a sec. Haha, I did it. Okay, that was kind of silly. Basically, there were two things that I had made a mistake on. I set view.bounds to the gradient layer's bounds instead of the gradient layer's frame, which is the difference between bounds and frames is one is relative to the super view that it's inside of, and one is not relative to the super view that it's inside of, and I'm still trying to figure out the difference between them, and I always forget. But the other big problem was that I left these as just UI colors, and they did actually need to be CG colors, which is kind of silly that it only shows this as being, you know, an any. It should probably specify, I don't know, I guess it's probably so that you can have your own specific subtypes, but still, that was confusing for me. And anyway, I've figured it out now, and so there we go. We've got a nice blue to green to blue gradient. I changed it because I was like, I don't know, maybe that's the problem. But I think I like green and blue anyway. But you see, there you go. That's the problem right there. And ignore the lag in the simulator right there. It's always super laggy. But yeah, that's the issue. So what we need to do, or what was suggested that will fix it, is whenever view will layout subviews is called, you set that layer to the bounds. So how did they end up doing that? Let's go back a couple of steps. This one, and right, okay, so gradient layer needs to be a thing that's it needs to be defined outside of just the thing. So I'm outside of just inside one function. Otherwise, view will layout subviews won't know what gradient layer is because it was only created inside this one here. So I'm going to go with let gradient layer equal CA gradient layer. Yep. And then I don't have to have that there. And now gradient layer is a thing. So you see how it shows green there, and it will show in here as well because now this knows what it is. So gradient layer. Oh, I've got to call super as well. Super. So that means that because I'm overriding this function, I still want it to call the original version of view will layout subviews as well. I don't want it to only call only run the code that I'm putting in here. I want it to run the code that it would also run if it was just running by itself. So gradient layer dot frame equals view dot layer dot bounds. And I think there's a bit of redundancy here because I could probably, I think view dot layer dot bounds is probably the same as well, but anyway, this one probably gets run twice because it's going to lay out the subviews every time the view will appear anyway. But that's okay, we're just testing stuff out. So if I do that, now it's hard to see in this. I'm going to just run this on my phone and see if that's actually working, because it's hard to see with the lag in the simulator there. So let's run that on my actual phone. Wait for a second. Development cannot be enabled while your device is locked. It's not locked. So hang on, I've got to be back in a second anyway, so I'll come back to you when I've figured out what's going on with my device. And yeah, cool. Okay, so I'm back, and yeah, apparently my phone is busy preparing debugger support, which I don't know how long that's going to take. So anyway, I was messing around with this, and you can actually kind of see the problem that I'm talking about. So if you see that flash of white when I turn it, look for that white there. That's the background color, and now everything outside of the background color is just black, right? And so that bit of white is this white here, and that shouldn't be visible. Like you need that not to be visible when so if I put this here, this text here, this little test thing. So let's switch that let's try and switch that back to the iPhone 10. And okay, yeah, if I put that text there, you'll probably see it behind this gradient moving. Or maybe not. I guess it depends on how it works when it's rotating. But still, you can see the background color. If I change this background color to something like red, and now this background color shouldn't matter because it should hypothetically be covered by the gradient at all time. I don't know why I'm changing highlighted. What am I trying to actually change? I'm trying to change this background color here. Change that to red. Oh, that's of the text. That's why it looked weird. Background red. Okay, so that shouldn't matter because it should be covered by the gradient the whole time. That's what the gradient is for. It's the background. But now if I rotate it, you can see that red there, which you shouldn't be able to see. That's not what I want. So I've got to figure out a way of making that smooth. And now what I tried in my last attempt was I tried just making this just a blue or a green or whatever one of the colors of the gradient was, or I even tried doing the average of the two colors to, make it seem smooth. But you can still, I guess that's a different blue there, but you can still see the line because it's going to stick out against the whatever color is different. And now these are two very different colors. I actually had a blue to a slightly darker blue, but it's the same principle, and it doesn't look right. And so what I'm going to try is changing this. So when view will layout subviews, I'm going to go well, obviously I'm going to set the gradient layer to that, but I'm also going to go UI view.animate. Yep, that one with duration 0.5 we'll say for now. The animations are going to be gradient layer dot alpha. No, it doesn't have an alpha. Basically, I need to make it invisible but I need it to fade to invisible, not just suddenly snap to invisible. So I might have to do this with the actual view that it's on, which in this case is actually the view that's the background color as well. So I can't actually do that. I'd have to put it on a separate view, but I'll see if there is a way to do this, and I'll be back in a sec, as usual. Okay, so we're back, and I think I've figured it out. Um, I think this looks okay. It's really hard to see on this simulator with the lag, but if my phone is going to be visible to the camera, oh gosh, it's really hard to position things. Yeah, it's still hard to see on here, but it's a lot smoother than it would be otherwise. Let's see if I turn off some light here. Is that more visible? A little bit. Basically, yeah, it's a lot smoother on here. And it's certainly a lot smoother than just doing it without the animation there. Now, the way I've done it here is a kind of not a good way. I'm using a asynchronous dispatch, which you shouldn't do unless you really need to, I think. Unless it's something that actually needs to be asynchronous, because when you run code asynchronously, that means that it can be running two streams of code at the same time, as far as I understand it anyway. And if you don't need to do that, then it's using up unnecessary power and using up unnecessary, cores and whatever in the device. So if I actually did an animation with a completion here, now I actually don't need all of that stuff. Let's go UI view .animate. Let's find one with just time interval animation completion. That's what I want. So time interval is going to be whatever I set the time there. I made a little variable for time so that I don't have to type it into all the different spots where I'm using this time. So animations, enter that. Completion, enter that. And in the completion, I'm going to put this UI view.animate there. And actually, wait, no, this one needs to go in the top one because that's setting it to... Oh, no, that was right. I don't know what I'm doing. That one goes there. This one goes the top. This one, just make that true. And there we go. So basically what's going on here is we've got the UI view and it's animating it with the duration of the time. And then we don't actually need that wrapper there because that's fine. Okay. So yeah, animating it with the duration of 0.2 is what we've set the time to. Sets the layer opacity to 0. So that means that it's completely transparent, not opaque at all. And you can, yeah, basically you can see right through it to whatever the background color is. Now here I set the background color to just blue. It might be better if I actually set that to an average of the two, but I wrote an average function for calculating the average of the two colors, but that's in another project and I'd have to open that up and that's a lot of work. So I'm just setting it to blue for now. And yeah, so this, you can see the background through it when that's run. And then once this is completed, so after the 0.2 seconds, it then runs this bit of code, which is another animation that goes for the same duration, the time variable there. And it sets the opacity to back to 1.0 instead of to 0, which was written there anyway. And that should hopefully work just the same. I'm going to run that on my phone again because it's easier to see it on here for me. I can actually make the phone visible on the screen, as in inside the computer screen, but that's going to require me to not have my face there, so then I don't know, I'd have to restart that thing. But yeah, this seems to work the same as it was before. I'll just have a look at it in real life to make sure. Actually, no, it's not working at all. Let's figure out what's going on there. So it seems to be not setting the opacity to 0 for some reason anymore. I don't know why. Because that's basically the same code. So, not sure why that doesn't work all of a sudden. But, yeah, I'm going to have to figure that out. Okay, give me a sec. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with this. I just changed the colors to orange and red because they're more similar colors, and also just to mix things up a bit, make it a bit more interesting. So again, yeah, hard to see in the simulator, but it is a lot more smooth, and that's just a white screen. There is no. What if I put it right up? Change your exposure to fit that. Yeah, that's the problem with using a built-in camera. You don't have much option on setting the options of it. So anyway, it is a lot smoother, even though you can only see a white screen. Yeah, on here you can kind of see it runs pretty smoothly. I had to leave it with the dispatch queue because for some reason, if I have two animations, it just does not work. Like, there's just no fade out animation, no fade in animation. It does fade out because if I, and I tested this, if I got rid of the fade back in bit, then it would just be, opaque. You wouldn't be able to see any of the gradient at all. So it was performing the animation, but you couldn't see it performing it. It would just switch between the two. And I don't know if that's some kind of glitch or I'm just completely misunderstanding how animations work, but it seems like if you had two. Anyway, I had one in the completion, like I showed before, and then I tried a separate way of doing it where I had the second animation have a delay of the time it took to complete the first animation. So after, 2 seconds or 0.2 seconds, it would then start the second animation, which was fading it back in. And for some reason that didn't work. So, I guess if I have to use a dispatch queue, I don't know why I have so much trouble saying that word, but if I have to use that, then I guess that's all right. I can do that. But yeah. Anyway, this does seem to work, and so I think I'll use something like this in for the background colors when I create the actual app, because I think that looks nice and smooth. Yeah, so there was one more thing that I was thinking about that I don't know exactly how I'd implement it, but I figured I should record my thoughts on the project in these videos. But I wanted to make the color sort of more dynamic within the app, so have it sort of flow through things and have it, be part of the button color and all of that, make it more integral to the app. So if I find my current projects, where are we looking? Minimal timer, take two, design. Yeah, so we've got when this opens, yeah, we've got the buttons and everything. And I kind of, instead of having the buttons just be white with, probably black text on top of I shouldn't lean back from the microphone, on top of the colored background, I kind of want the buttons to have some kind of color aspect to them as well. And when you tap on a button, I want it to feel like the color is sort of flowing out from that, and then the color starts draining from the display as the timer goes down. And if I could possibly have some kind of, liquidy appearance to it, kind of like like it's made of gel or something, like a lava lamp with kind of colors flowing through it rather than just a, static gradient. I feel like that would make the app feel much more alive and sort of like it's actually ticking down something. And yeah, that's something I kind of want to work on, which I'm probably going to have to work on off camera because I have no idea where I'd even begin to work on something like that. So that's going to have to be something that I figure out slowly and painfully, and you probably don't want to see that, and it's probably not worth recording most of that because most of it's just going to be trial and error. So I'll work on that off camera, and then if I figure something out, then I'll come back and explain kind of what I've done. But yeah, that's about where I've got to leave it for today. It was only a short thing, but I've got to go and do stuff with my life. And yeah, that's that. So I guess thanks for watching, and yeah, I'll see you in another video, hopefully another one tomorrow. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, bye.